Good afternoon, my name is Hala Atamanova and it's my pleasure to see everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. Today it's day 583 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and now we will be talking about the fires in our ecosystems. We'll talk about their aftermath, and we will be talking about the ways to prevent such emergencies. I would like to introduce a speaker today. Joining us in this studio is Roman Rudak, Deputy Director of the Department for Emergency Prevention at the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Roman. Good afternoon. So, what are the consequences? What does the situation tells us for the time being? Is the number of such cases increasing, and how to prevent them? Good afternoon once again. Yes, for the time being, what we're observing is a surge in fires in ecosystems. Well, first of all, it is a result of the hot and dry weather in the majority of the regions of our country, in the absence of rains. Also, there are factors that result from the war that assist to the eruption of fires, explosion of the ordnance, but it's also the human factor, our citizens who are not very diligent and they continue to burn the dry vegetation. What the statistics show? Well, generally, today, compared to the previous year, the statistics show that the number of fires decreased almost twice in the ecosystems. But regardless that fact, only within the last day we've documented 240 missions. Our units went to put out fires. Those fires in ecosystems also resulted in death of 28 people and injuries of 40 more. So we expect to have dry weather during this weekend, which creates more risks of fires in ecosystems. Well, we understand the reasons. Unfortunately, we cannot remove the occupiers from our homeland, but talking about the everyday regular reasons, what are the reasons for, or causes, I would rather say causes of such fires in ecosystems? Well, first of all, it's a diligent handling of fire that results in broad scale fires. For example, within the last day, I can give you the examples. We had 2 cases in Odessa region when people were burning the dry vegetation that caused fire in the area of 8 hectares that resulted in damage of 4 buildings. Also in Mykolaiv region, in the village of Rybakivka, there was a fire in the area of 5 hectares. So within the last 2 days we had a significant number of fires erupting in our ecosystems, which were caused by the improper handling of fire. So I want to remind our citizens about the safety rules, how to prevent the fires. Those are the elementary things. Today there is a dry weather in our country, and State Emergency Service asks and urges everybody to abstain from visiting forests, not to burn the dry vegetation, not to burn the utility residues remaining in the fields, in the industrial facilities. Even as you move in your car, just don't throw the cigarette butts to the curb, because it may result in fire too. Also, please be informed that you're not supposed to visit forests using improperly operating vehicles, because it may retain some residues of the flammable materials. Just comply with these elementary rules to prevent the eruption of fires, because we want to remind you that in the territories that are freshly deoccupied, there are residues of unexploded ordnance, abandoned unexploded ordnance that are of hazard to people and that may also result in ignition. So let's talk about the liability. What is the liability for such actions? And what about the people who were already brought to liability for committing such actions? Yes, please be informed that for the time being there is a liability for such actions contemplated by the Article 77 of the Criminal and Administrative Code. The citizens are penalized for the amount of 4,500 hryvnia, and the Article 77.1 is penalized in amount of 360 untaxed minimum, so up to 6,000 hryvnias. Yes, currently there are penalties imposed on the citizens during the raids that State Emergency Service performs in cooperation with the National Police of Ukraine and the representatives of local governments. Now the State Emergency Service performs those raids using the unmanned aerial vehicles, which help us to promptly identify the violators. We had one of such cases in Lviv region. We identified 5 such cases within only one raid, and 5 people were brought to liability as a result of the raid. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Do we have any questions on the floor? Good afternoon, Maria Gonchar, Ukrinform. The question is, what is the equipment mostly required by our State Emergency Service to cope with the fires in ecosystems? Is that equipment sufficient now? Thank you very much for the question. I cannot always comment on the amount of the equipment. The topic of today's speech is a little bit different, but actually the equipment is not quite sufficient, and what kind of equipment we need is the demining equipment mostly. And talking about the fires, everything is okay with the equipment. Well, not quite so. You know, the State Emergency Service keeps improving. Every day we know that there are new types of equipment being developed for putting out the fires, for example, and definitely our units want to use the best and most up-to-date equipment because it improves the quality of their work. It means they saved lives and probably saved health of the people. So saying everything is good for the time being, it would be not quite correct, but we use what is available to us. And talking about the human resources, specifically in the territories that were recently deoccupied, are the human resources sufficient to counter those challenges that you face in the deoccupied territories? Well, talking about our State Emergency Service personnel, yes, the personnel is sufficient. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Roman, for all the information. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you, joining us was Roman Rudak, Deputy Director of the Department for Emergency Prevention at the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Our team is working on putting together the schedule for the next week. We want to thank the Security and Defense Forces for this opportunity to hold events like this. So glory to Ukraine and glory to the heroes.